Insight to Impact Code, Part 3. Insight to Impact Code, Part 3. The Law of Selection. You Must Choose What You Want. Written by Daniel Eremesele. Contents: the principle of selection, the inner library, the architecture of choice, the selection of words, the selection of relationships and counsel, the selection of attention and environment, from selection to discipline, the selection to impact blueprint. Conclusion: the life you select, the law of selection, personal declaration. Introduction. From possibility to purpose, life continually presents us with alternatives. We choose what to notice, what to believe, what to repeat, whom to trust, where to invest time, and how to respond when circumstances change. Some selections are conscious, others are habits formed so gradually that they feel automatic. Yet both kinds of selection influence our direction. Part 1 of the Insight to Impact Code explored insight, the capacity to see and understand. Part 2 examined sound and the influence of what we hear and proclaim. Part 3 now turns to selection, the governing act that decides which insights and sounds will be welcomed, rejected, developed, and translated into action. Selection is not a promise that every preferred outcome will occur. Human beings do not control every circumstance, and wise faith does not deny uncertainty, injustice, limitation, or loss. The law of selection teaches something more responsible. Within the area entrusted to us, our repeated choices shape character, readiness, relationships, habits, and the quality of our contribution. This book will help you examine the forces already influencing you and build a practical system for intentional living. Each chapter ends with reflection questions and an impact practice. Read slowly, write honestly, and apply one principle at a time. The goal is not information alone. The goal is transformation that becomes visible through service, excellence, and faithful results. Chapter 1. The Principle of Selection. Your future is influenced not only by what is available to you, but by what you repeatedly choose. Success is governed by principles. Success is rarely the result of one dramatic moment. More often, it is the accumulated outcome of choices made consistently over time. A person selects an attitude, a response, a relationship, a habit, a field of study, or a way of speaking. Each selection may appear small, yet together those choices form a direction. Direction, maintained long enough, becomes destiny. This is why anyone who desires meaningful success must understand the principles that influence results. A principle is a dependable truth that connects an action with an outcome. Principles do not remove the need for prayer, grace, effort, or wisdom. They help us cooperate with them. When we understand a principle and align our conduct with it, life becomes less accidental and more intentional. The law of selection can be stated simply: what you repeatedly admit into your mind, give your attention to, agree with, practice, and pursue will eventually influence the person you become. Selection is therefore more than choosing between products or opportunities. It is the power to decide what will be permitted to shape your inner life and your outward direction. What selection really means. In ordinary usage, selection is the act of carefully choosing a person or thing from a group of possibilities. It involves distinction. Many options may be present, but only some are accepted. Applied to life, selection is the deliberate process of deciding which thoughts, values, voices, habits, words, relationships, and opportunities deserve a place in your journey. Human life is formed through continual intake. From childhood onward, we receive information, instructions, examples, expectations, traditions, and emotional impressions. Some strengthen us, others distort our view of ourselves and the world. Unless we examine what we have received, yesterday's untested messages may become today's automatic decisions. The mature person does not accept everything simply because it is familiar, popular, emotional, or available. Maturity asks, is this true? Is it wise? Is it consistent with my values and faith? Will it move me toward the life I am called to build? The ability to ask these questions is the beginning of intentional selection. Selection creates direction. A destination is reached through a series of directions, and directions are established through choices. When you select learning instead of excuses, responsibility instead of blame, disciplined action instead of endless delay, and wise counsel instead of flattering voices, you are not merely improving the present moment. You are constructing a pathway. Deuteronomy 30:19 presents life and death, blessing and curse, and then gives a clear instruction: choose life. The passage reveals both responsibility and mercy. God places alternatives before people, explains their consequences, and calls them to choose the path that preserves life for themselves and those who follow them. Biblical selection is therefore not selfish preference, it is responsible stewardship. Every choice has a seed within it. The visible harvest may be delayed, but the direction begins immediately. Wise selection asks not only, "What do I want now?" but also, "What will this choice produce later?" Reflection questions: what have I repeatedly allowed to shape my thinking? Which present choice is quietly establishing my future direction? What does choosing life look like in my current season? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 2. The Inner Library. Your mind stores what you repeatedly receive. Wisdom decides what deserves to remain influential. The materials within. The mind can be compared to an inner library. It holds memories, beliefs, instructions, interpretations, images, fears, hopes, and lessons. Some entries were deliberately chosen, others arrived through family patterns, painful experiences, culture, education, media, or repeated conversations. Although stored information is not always consciously remembered, it may still influence perception and behavior. This helps explain why a person may sincerely desire one outcome while repeatedly acting in a way that produces another. The conscious mind may say, "I want progress," while an old internal message says, "People like me never succeed." The desire is present, but a conflicting belief keeps selecting familiar responses. Romans 7 describes the painful tension of wanting to do what is right while encountering another influence at work within. The passage should not be reduced to a modern psychological formula, yet it clearly acknowledges that inner forces can oppose conscious intention. Transformation requires more than wishing. It requires truth, spiritual renewal, honest examination, and new patterns of obedience. From information to programming, information becomes influential through repetition, emotion, authority, and agreement. A statement heard once may be dismissed. The same statement repeated by trusted people, reinforced by experience, and accepted without examination can become a governing assumption. The assumption then filters new events. We notice evidence that supports it and overlook evidence that challenges it. Not every thought that enters the mind deserves agreement. A thought can be present without being permitted to preside. This distinction is essential. You may notice fear without selecting fear as your counselor. You may remember failure without selecting failure as your identity. You may receive criticism without selecting every criticism as truth. Renewal begins when you identify an unhelpful inner message, test it, reject what is false, and replace it with a truthful and constructive conviction. This process may require prayer, scripture, wise counsel, professional support, study, practice, and time. Deep patterns are not always changed by one declaration, but repeated truth joined with consistent action can establish a new internal pathway. Audit your inner library. An inner audit is not an invitation to become self-absorbed. It is a practical act of stewardship. Examine the beliefs influencing your decisions about God, identity, relationships, money, work, leadership, health, and opportunity. Ask where each belief came from and what fruit it has produced. Retain what is true, life-giving, and consistent with godly wisdom. Correct what is incomplete. Release what is false, destructive, or no longer relevant to your calling. The goal is not to erase your history but to prevent history from exercising authority it was never meant to possess. A well-governed inner life gives you greater freedom at the point of decision. Instead of reacting from old programming, you can respond from examined conviction. That is selection working from the inside out. Reflection questions. Which repeated message has most influenced my self-image? What evidence shows that this belief is true or false? Which truthful conviction will I rehearse and practice this week? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 3. The Architecture of Choice. A powerful life is built when daily decisions serve a clearly defined future. Choose from vision, not pressure. Many poor decisions are not caused by a lack of intelligence. They are caused by the absence of a clear standard at the moment of pressure. When values and priorities have not been decided in advance, urgency, appetite, fear, and public opinion become temporary rulers. Vision gives selection a reference point. If you know the kind of person you are becoming and the assignment you are pursuing, you can evaluate options according to purpose. An attractive opportunity may still be a distraction. A difficult responsibility may still be the right choice. Selection is wise when it serves the larger direction of your life. This does not mean every decision will be certain. Some choices must be made with limited information. In such moments, seek wisdom, gather relevant facts, consider consequences, pray, and act with integrity. Clarity often increases after responsible movement begins. The 4 filters of wise selection. A useful selection process includes 4 filters. First is truth. Is my understanding accurate, or am I reacting to assumption and emotion? Second is alignment. Does this option agree with my values, faith, responsibilities, and long-term direction? Third is fruit. What is this choice likely to produce in me and through me? Fourth is stewardship. Is this the best use of the time, energy, money, trust, and opportunity placed in my hands? These filters slow impulsive decisions without creating paralysis. They also protect against choices that look impressive but carry hidden costs. Every yes spends something. It may spend time, focus, money, reputation, peace, or access to another opportunity. Wise people count both the visible benefit and the invisible cost. The purpose of a decision framework is not to remove dependence on God. It is to make our responsibility practical. Prayerful people should also be thoughtful people. Faith and sound judgment are partners, not enemies. Small choices, compounding results. Large outcomes are frequently built through small repeated selections. 1 hour of focused learning seems modest, but repeated over a year it can produce uncommon competence. 1 honest conversation may seem uncomfortable, but it can prevent years of resentment. 1 careless expense may appear harmless, but a pattern of unmanaged spending can weaken financial stability. Compounding works in both directions. Constructive selections gain strength through repetition, and destructive selections do the same. This is why consistency is more powerful than occasional intensity. A life cannot be governed well only on days of inspiration. Choose a few decisions that deserve to become standards. The time you begin important work, how you respond to offense, what you do before making financial commitments, and which voices you consult. A standard reduces the number of battles you must fight repeatedly. Reflection questions. What future am I using as the reference point for today's decisions? Which option passes the filters of truth, alignment, fruit, and stewardship? What small choice should become a non-negotiable standard? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 4. The Selection of Words. Words do not replace action, but they shape attention, agreement, relationships, and action. Speech reveals and reinforces. Words often reveal what has been stored in the heart, and repeated speech can reinforce the perspective from which we act. A person who continually describes every challenge as impossible trains attention toward defeat. A person who speaks with honesty and hope can acknowledge difficulty without surrendering responsibility. Mark 11:23 presents a vivid picture of faith-filled speech directed toward a mountain. The emphasis is not permission to use words as a substitute for obedience or practical action. It is a call to speak from genuine belief rather than divided conviction. Biblical speech is joined to faith, truth, prayer, and a life submitted to God. Our words also affect other people. They can clarify or confuse, heal or wound, encourage or weaken, create trust or destroy it. The law of selection therefore applies before speech. Among all the words available to me, which ones are true, necessary, gracious, and suited to the moment? Prayer and daily conversation. Many people speak courageously during prayer and then spend the rest of the day rehearsing hopelessness. This contradiction weakens focus. It is difficult to build faithfully while continually narrating inevitable failure. Consistency does not mean pretending that pain or problems do not exist. It means describing reality without giving temporary conditions the final word. Healthy speech can say, "This is difficult, but I can learn." It can say, "I made a mistake, but I will take responsibility and correct it." It can say, "I do not yet see the full solution, but I will pursue wisdom and take the next right step." Such language is neither denial nor empty positivity. It is truthful, responsible hope. Before repeating a statement, ask what it will organize within you. Will it deepen courage or panic? Will it direct you toward action or excuse? Will it protect dignity while still admitting the truth? Selected words become instructions to attention, and attention influences behavior. A discipline of constructive speech. Constructive speech begins with listening. Pause before answering. Separate facts from interpretations. Refuse exaggerations such as always, never, and everyone, when they are not accurate. Replace personal attacks with clear descriptions of behavior and impact. Speak specifically about what you are building. Vague desire produces vague action. Instead of saying, "I want my life to improve," identify the improvement. "I will complete this certification, develop this skill, save this amount, repair this relationship, or finish this manuscript." Specific words make measurement possible. Finally, let your speech be supported by conduct. Words have moral weight when behavior gives them credibility. Select words that you are willing to honor with preparation, discipline, apology, service, and action. Reflection questions. Which repeated phrase weakens my faith or responsibility? How can I describe my present challenge truthfully and hopefully? What specific commitment must my actions now support? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 5. The selection of relationships and counsel. Access to your life should be guided by love, wisdom, purpose, and appropriate boundaries. People influence possibility. Relationships are among life's greatest gifts, but every relationship carries influence. Through people we receive language, expectations, opportunities, correction, encouragement, and examples. This does not mean we should use people merely for advancement. It means we should recognize that companionship is formative and choose our closest influences responsibly. You can love everyone without giving everyone equal access to your decisions. Different relationships serve different purposes and require different boundaries. A friend may offer emotional support but lack expertise in business. A gifted professional may provide technical advice but not possess the character required for intimate trust. Wisdom distinguishes affection, access, authority, and expertise. Selection in relationships is not superiority. It is stewardship. The question is not, is this person valuable? Every person has dignity. The question is, what place should this relationship occupy, and what kind of influence is appropriate here? Choose counsel by fruit. Advice should be evaluated, not merely admired. Consider the counselor's character, competence, experience, motives, and results. Confidence is not the same as wisdom. Popularity is not the same as credibility. Familiarity is not the same as qualification. Good counsel may challenge you. Flattery protects comfort, while wisdom protects purpose. Select people who can celebrate your progress without becoming dishonest about your weaknesses. Invite correction from those who respect your dignity and are committed to truth. At the same time, do not surrender personal responsibility to advisors. Counsel can illuminate a decision, but you remain accountable for the choice. Listen widely when appropriate, pray carefully, test what you hear, and decide with conviction. Build a purposeful circle. A healthy circle often includes several kinds of relationships: people who nurture your spiritual life, people who share honest friendship, people with expertise, people you serve, and people whose example stretches your vision. One individual need not fulfill every role. Be the kind of person you hope to select. Bring integrity, reliability, generosity, discretion, and value into your relationships. Purposeful networks are not built only by asking, "Who can help me?" They grow when people also ask, "How can I contribute?" Where a relationship is persistently abusive, manipulative, or unsafe, wise selection may require distance and qualified support. Forgiveness does not always require restored access. Boundaries can protect healing, responsibility, and peace. Reflection questions. Whose voice has the greatest influence over my important decisions? Does that person have the character and competence appropriate to that influence? What boundary or contribution would make one relationship healthier? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 6. The selection of attention and environment. Whatever repeatedly captures your attention competes to shape your imagination and priorities. Attention is a limited resource. Modern life offers more information than any person can meaningfully absorb. Notifications, headlines, entertainment, advertising, opinions, and urgent requests compete for attention. If attention is not selected deliberately, it will be allocated by whoever is most skilled at capturing it. Attention is more than looking. It is the gateway through which ideas receive mental energy. What you dwell on grows in emotional and practical significance. Repeated exposure can make the abnormal feel normal, the trivial feel urgent, and the possible feel impossible, or it can educate, inspire, and prepare you. You do not need to fear information, but you must govern intake. Ask whether a source informs you, equips you, restores you, or merely agitates you. A person can remain busy consuming content while making no progress toward purpose. Design the environment. Willpower is useful, but environment often has the first move. Objects, defaults, routines, and people create cues that make certain behaviors easier. If distraction is always within reach and important work requires several steps to begin, the environment has been designed against focus. Make wise choices easier. Prepare the workspace before the work period. Place learning materials where they are visible. Remove unnecessary applications from the first screen of your device. Establish times for communication rather than responding continuously. Create physical and digital spaces that remind you of what matters. Environment also includes atmosphere. Disorder, unresolved conflict, and constant noise consume energy. You may not control every setting, but you can improve what is within your stewardship. Small environmental changes can release attention for higher value work. Create an information diet. An information diet is a deliberate plan for what you read, watch, hear, and discuss. Like food, information differs in quality and purpose. Some is essential, some is beneficial in moderation, and some is harmful when consumed repeatedly. Select a limited number of credible sources for news and professional learning. Schedule periods for deep reading and reflection. Balance intake with creation. After learning, write, practice, teach, build, or apply. Knowledge becomes impact when it changes decisions and produces useful action. Regularly take a day or defined period to reduce non-essential input. Silence is not emptiness. It creates room to notice, pray, think, and reconnect with priorities. Reflection questions. What currently receives more of my attention than it deserves? Which change would make focused action easier in my environment? What will I reduce, retain, and add to my information diet? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 7. From Selection to Discipline. A choice becomes transformative when it is protected by a system and repeated through changing emotions. Decision is the beginning. Selecting a goal is not the same as achieving it. The first decision establishes direction, but discipline carries the decision through resistance. Without structure, sincere intentions are repeatedly renegotiated according to mood. Discipline is not punishment. It is the arrangement of behavior around what matters most. It converts values into calendars, priorities into routines, and promises into evidence. A disciplined person is not someone who never feels resistance. It is someone who has learned how to act responsibly despite resistance. This is where the law of selection becomes visible. What you truly select must eventually receive time, energy, preparation, and sacrifice. Otherwise it remains a preference rather than a priority. Build a selection system. Begin with one clearly defined outcome. Identify the few actions that most directly produce it. Assign those actions a time and place. Reduce friction before the starting moment. Track completion in a simple way, and review progress at a regular interval. Use implementation statements. At this time, in this place, I will perform this action for this duration. Such specificity prevents the mind from treating a commitment as an optional idea. Keep the first version realistic enough to repeat. Consistency can be expanded. An unsustainable plan usually collapses. Also decide how you will respond to interruption. Missing once does not need to become abandonment. Review what happened, make a reasonable correction, and return promptly. The ability to recover is part of discipline. Measure fruit, not activity alone. Activity can create the feeling of progress without producing the intended result. Measurement keeps selection honest. If the goal is to write a book, count completed sections or edited words, not merely hours spent thinking about writing. If the goal is to grow a business, track meaningful indicators such as qualified conversations, conversions, retained customers, and healthy margins, not only social media attention. Measures should serve purpose rather than become idols. Numbers cannot capture every form of growth, especially character, faithfulness, and relational health. Use both quantitative evidence and qualitative reflection. A monthly review can ask, what did I select? What did I repeatedly do? What fruit appeared? What must I stop, start, or strengthen? This turns experience into insight and insight into improved impact. Reflection questions. Which selected goal has not yet received a supporting system? When and where will I perform the key action? What evidence will show that my effort is producing fruit? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Chapter 8. The Selection to Impact Blueprint. Impact is intentional selection carried through faithful action for the benefit of others. Insight must become practice. The purpose of insight is not admiration, it is application. Understanding the law of selection should lead to visible changes in what you accept, reject, pursue, repeat, and release. Information that never enters conduct may increase vocabulary without increasing effectiveness. Impact begins when a chosen truth becomes a practice principle. You select responsibility and become dependable. You select learning and become more capable. You select constructive speech and become a source of courage and clarity. You select service and your growth begins to benefit people beyond yourself. The Insight to Impact journey therefore moves through 4 stages: awareness, evaluation, selection, and embodiment. Awareness notices what is influencing you. Evaluation tests its truth and fruit. Selection makes an intentional choice. Embodiment repeats that choice until it becomes visible in character and contribution. A 7-day reset. For 7 days, focus on one area rather than attempting to rebuild your whole life at once. On the first day, name the desired outcome. On the second, identify the internal message that supports or opposes it. On the third, choose one daily action. On the fourth, adjust your environment. On the fifth, seek appropriate counsel. On the sixth, review your words and attention. On the seventh, reflect on the fruit and prepare the next cycle. The reset is intentionally simple. Its value comes from honest execution. Write your observations. Keep promises small enough to honor and meaningful enough to matter. At the end of the week, retain what worked and revise what did not. Repeated cycles create self-knowledge and practical wisdom. You learn which environments strengthen you, which triggers weaken you, what time supports your best work, and which relationships improve discernment. Choose what you want, and what it requires. The subtitle of this book declares, you must choose what you want. Yet mature selection goes further. You must also choose what the desired future requires. People often select the reward while rejecting the process. They want influence without preparation, prosperity without stewardship, strong relationships without difficult conversations, and impact without service. A complete choice includes both destination and discipline. Ask, what kind of person must I become to carry this result responsibly? Then select the habits, knowledge, character, relationships, and sacrifices that support that becoming. God-given purpose is not fulfilled through uncontrolled intake or accidental living. Choose life. Choose truth. Choose wise words. Choose sound counsel. Choose disciplined action. Then remain faithful long enough for inner selection to become visible impact. Reflection questions. What single area will I address in my 7-day reset? Have I selected only the reward, or also the process it requires? Who will benefit when my chosen insight becomes consistent action? Impact practice. Write one specific selection you will make in the next 24 hours. Name the action that will prove your choice, the time you will take it, and the person or system that will help you remain accountable. Conclusion. The life you select. The law of selection brings responsibility close to home. It asks us to stop treating every influence as inevitable and every habit as permanent. We may not have selected everything that entered our history, but with truth, grace, wisdom, and appropriate help, we can decide what will continue to govern our future. Your life is not shaped by desire alone. It is shaped by the thoughts you agree with, the words you repeat, the counsel you trust, the environments you maintain, and the disciplines you practice. These selections eventually become patterns, and patterns produce outcomes. Choose patiently. Choose prayerfully. Choose with an understanding of consequences. When you make a mistake, take responsibility, learn, and choose again. The power of selection includes the power of correction. Insight shows you what is possible. Sound gives expression to conviction. Selection establishes direction. Discipline protects the choice. Service turns growth outward. Together, these movements convert spiritual and practical understanding into visible impact. You must choose what you want, and you must choose what it requires. Choose life, truth, wisdom, courage, integrity, disciplined action, and contribution. Then allow your daily conduct to confirm your choice. The law of selection. Personal declaration. I accept responsibility for the influences and choices within my stewardship. I will examine what enters my mind, test the counsel I receive, select words that agree with truth, and build habits that serve my God-given purpose. I will not allow old failures, uncontrolled attention, or temporary pressure to dictate my direction. With God's help, I choose life, wisdom, discipline, service, and faithful impact. I will support my choices with action and allow my growth to become a blessing to others. Signature, blank, underscore, blank. Date, blank, underscore, blank. Copyright 2026 Daniel Eremisele. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means without prior written permission from the copyright holder, except for brief quotations used in reviews, scholarship, or as otherwise permitted by law. Scripture quotations marked KJV are from the King James Version. Biblical references are used for teaching and commentary. This book is intended for educational and inspirational purposes. It does not replace professional legal, financial, medical, psychological, or pastoral advice. We sincerely appreciate the time you have spent with us. We look forward to connecting with you again. Until then, remain blessed, continue exploring the treasures God has placed within you, and remember to listen to our other inspirational materials. We would be grateful to receive your feedback and hear how this audiobook has blessed, encouraged, or transformed your life. Please help us to like and subscribe to our channel to help us reach more people. Thank you once again.